Are you a tourist or a traveler? We're going to talk about the differences today. Hi everybody, I'm Mike Vondruska with Mike's Mexico Adventures. Thanks for watching. As you can tell, I'm not in Mexico right now. I'm actually home for the holidays in the Chicago area. It's a nice brisk 28 degrees today and maybe some snow later. Today I wanted to talk in this video about the difference between tourists and travelers. Just so you know, you could be both, not at the same time. Let's first talk about tourists. Let's talk about tourists first. A tourist is somebody who just wants to get away from the normal daily grind from work, from what they're used to every day, and they don't really want to think much. They want to be entertained. They want everything mapped out for them, planned for them, picked up at the airport, wherever they're flying to, and just be in their comfort zone. All right, nothing new, nothing different, nothing heavy, no big educational things or anything like that. I just want to maybe relax in the mountains, relax on the beaches, and not eat food that's very different from the food that they're used to. In other words, being a tourist equals no surprises. A tourist will go to a place like Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, where there's a lot of other people who speak English, where a lot of the locals speak English, where actually in Cancun, the people who work there have to know one or two other languages besides Spanish just to get a job. You don't have to deal with a foreign language when you're a tourist, if you're going to the sun and sand places. Now let's talk about travelers. A traveler is a completely different animal. A traveler, on the other hand, is someone who most likely won't go to an all-inclusive resort. A traveler is someone who's not going to go to the commercialized tourist areas that the tourists go to. Tourists go to the ones that are advertised, the ones you see on television and brochures that the travel agents have if you walk into their office. A traveler, on the other hand, wants to see the real country. They want to meet the people. They want to know about the culture, about their history, eat their kinds of foods. A traveler would equal surprises. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. Some of the surprises, quote-unquote surprises, that I've run across in my travels, either solo through Mexico, when I go on exploration trips to know more about a different area, and also when I've been with my travel guests. There are actually a quick 10 of them that I want to talk about. My first example about unexpected things that happen when you're a traveler has to do with parades. It seems like every little Mexican town has either religious parades or parades of students doing something, and it just, every time you turn around there's a parade. And sometimes as we get to a town with travel guests and we are going to either pass through it or we're going to stay there or whatever, we get stuck by a parade similar to the one like this. You never know what's going to happen here in Mexico. Here in Veracruz, here we got stuck by this parade. I'm not sure what they're celebrating, but it is colorful and it was very unexpected. Here's another interesting thing that happened with a particular travel guest that we had from Washington, D.C. We were exploring the capital city of Veracruz, which is Jalapa, and there's a big hill more or less in the center of town, and it's a park. We were going to go up to the very top because there's an observation tower that you can see the surrounding area. It was really nice. Well, it happened to be on a Saturday, and there were a lot of local families that were out, and there was a guy that had these big birds. What happened was he was flying the birds back and forth down the pathways. my travel guest had an opportunity to actually hold the bird, pet the bird, which was totally unexpected, not on the itinerary, didn't know he was going to be there. It just happened. Watch.
Wow. Hey there.
Y este se deja hasta acariciar, ¿eh? Es el único. Es el único.
Can I? Can I touch?
Sí, sí, sin miedo, sin miedo, sin miedo, sin miedo. La mano arriba más alta de su cabeza, ajá. Así.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing. I wasn't expecting to be catching a bird today, but I love it. Can someone take a picture with mine real quick?
You could tell she was having a great time. She even said something to the effect that it was unexpected, that she didn't know she was going to be holding a big bird like that day. And so that was a special treat. And yes, someone did take a picture of her with her camera, and she's got some great shots to show her friends. Here comes another plane. Ah, the joys of living near one of the busiest airports. You get used to it. Okay. In my travels through Mexico, I have met a lot of people, and consequently, I've been invited to celebrations, private celebrations. I've been to 3 or 4 different 15th birthday parties for young women, and just recently, I was invited to a 1-year-old baptism. It was really a fun party. It was for the kids. There was a lot of entertainment and games and giveaways and prizes and tons of beer for the adults. And so everybody was satisfied. Everybody had a great time. Plus they had a lot of food as well. So I went to it with my friends, and I was the only foreigner there, and I was accepted and just part of the gang. Even in major cities, things can happen unexpectedly. One time I was with my guides, actually. We were doing some business in Mexico City, right downtown, and in this one walkway area, it's called Calle Madero, there were these teenagers, and they were doing a fundraiser for a friend of theirs, this girl who you'll see in this next clip, and she was trying to raise some money for her graduation party, for the cap and gown and that. And I did a video on this early on. You can check that out if you want and see the whole story. But here's a short clip. These are people that we just met on the street. These are high school students. Everybody wave. What they're doing is they're raising money for their graduation, to pay for their caps and gowns, to pay for like the graduation rings and things like that. They are actually soliciting some money for hugs. What can I get for this? Okay, so we're gonna get a hug. So let's have a hug. Oh. So that was kind of fun. I didn't know that was going to happen. They made a little bit of money. I gave them some money. We got that on film. I got a nice hug by, as you can see, everybody that was there. Anyway, it was fun. Sometimes stuff happens with animals in the wild. Here are 2 quick stories. The first one has to do with a coral snake. Coral snakes are very dangerous, about the 2nd poisonous snake I think I read in the world. And with a couple people, we actually ran across a coral snake in the tropical area of Mexico. I've been to this area many times with people. Never saw one before, haven't seen one since, but it was there. We were safe. I mean, it was off in the, off the pathway a little bit, but fact is, we actually encountered one in the wild. Again, you're not going to see that if you're a tourist, because nobody's going to take you someplace like that where that might happen. Here's the second one. This was kind of cool too. It happened also in the tropical area of Mexico, and that is We were going through in a boat through some mangrove estuaries. Where those gnarled trees are and everything, and also the bigger trees were like kind of somewhat going over this channel that we were on the boat going through. And I happened to look up. We had a group of people from the United States and Brazil, as I recall, and I happened to look up, and there in the tree we're passing under were these two big, thick, fat boa constrictors. Wow. I told the guy that was driving the boat to stop, and he backed up, and those people really got a thrill to be able to take photos and be able to take video. And speaking of video, I have a clip. Here's what it looked like. Interestingly, I've talked to people, my friends who live in that area and that have been through those channels, those mangrove estuaries many times, and they've never seen a boa. So they were like jealous because we got to see it. Then there was this other time where we were with some people from Illinois, actually. We were along the Gulf of Mexico coastline. We happened to cross this gentleman who started talking to my guide, who's bilingual, and he was mentioning to him that we were all invited that evening to attend a horse race. Now this is not in a stadium or an arena or anything like that. This is like out in the sticks, just down a path that they created. And this happened, I guess, quite regularly. So we asked our clients, would you like to go? And they were like, sure, because they're travelers, and this was an experience that wasn't on the itinerary. We didn't know until that day. So later that evening, we went to the place where they said it was going to be held. There were a lot of people there, families, kids, a lot of pickup trucks and cars. And as it started to get darker, they actually faced their cars toward the track, the straight track, and they put their lights on so that they could see. But it was really different. It was fun. We shot a little clip of it. Here it is.
Hi, I'm Jorge from Discover Veracruz Tours. She's Diane and my friend Joel. We are in Playa Hermosa in the southern Veracruz. This day they have a horse race over here in this field outside of the town with all these people. All of them, they are my paisanos. And we are waiting for the race right now. Joel, you want to say something or you want to drink something?
I'm going to drink and say, to you, horseman.
We're out here in the middle of the cow field.
We're in the pasture.
Okay, let's wait until see who's going to be the winner.
Are they warming up or
That was different, wasn't it? We were the only foreigners there, and everybody just accepted us, and we were part of it, and we were cheering on the racers, and people were betting, and it was just homegrown fun that they do down in that area. Sometimes those unexpected things that happen are not exactly positive. In this particular case, it was kind of sad, but it did happen. And I was with a small group of people. We were in the state of Michoacan, and in the state of Michoacan, one of the indigenous groups that live there is the Peretta Ches. They speak Peretta Ches. There's this one village that is kind of walled, and once you go through it, it's like you went back in time. It's they wear the traditional dress. They're speaking of Peretta Ches. It's very interesting, and so I was able to secure accommodations at someone's home to stay in some bedrooms they had that night, and then the next day we were going to walk around the town and see how they lived. About midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, as everybody was asleep, we heard these bells from the main church. Ding, 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 ding. Woke us up, didn't know what was going on, but finally it stopped and everybody went back to sleep. Well, the next morning, the woman who we were staying at their house, the deal was she was going to make us breakfast. And so we went down there at the time that she asked us to be there, and she wasn't there. We waited, we waited, we waited, we waited, and finally she showed up, and she was very apologetic. She spoke Spanish, as well as Peretta Ches, and so she was speaking to us in Spanish. She was very apologetic, said she would make breakfast for us right away. And one of us asked, well, what were the bells? What was going on last night that at late night the bells were ringing from the church? She kind of looked down and sighed. She said, when something happens in their village, that's a way to get everybody to congregate in the main square. They gathered, and she found out that this young woman had died. I don't know if she had, what kind of complications she had, but she was 32 years old, married, had 2 children, and she died that night. Everybody in the village stayed up all night long to be with the family of the woman and to support them and be with them. It was just a family thing. And the village was family. It was very interesting that day as we were walking around, you could see that there was a somber mood within the village. It's not like it would have been, you know, any other day. And it was interesting. It was sad, but nonetheless, things happen. People die, and someone died while we were there, and it was very important to the whole village. Here's another thing. Speaking of things dying, we were in a jungle area one time, and we just had one client, and she had custom designed this trip with our help because she wanted to see rural life. She had grown up in the rural areas in the United States, and so that's what we did. And we were on this farm, very small place where they were raising chickens and pigs. We got there was a pig. It was very hot, first of all. We were in the tropics. It was a very, very hot day, and there was this big pig that was tied up to a tree. We had gone to take a hike up into the jungle area to see some waterfalls. When we got back, somehow the pig had wrapped itself around and around and around and was not able to get into the shade or get to his water. He died of lack of water, dehydration. We came back to find this pig dead right there. Well, they don't want to waste the meat, and so right away they have to process it. And that's what happened. You're going to see this in the clip. And then I'll talk after that. Here's the clip.
The sow that we saw earlier that was kind of hot, and she was kind of tied around the stick, and when they let her go, she ended up sort of kind of dying.
Sure.
So they're going to process her right here, and that's how they do it here in Mexico, and this is how we used to do it in the States many, many years ago. So this is part of the Mexican experience.
So we're going to cut her up.
Yeah.
Use her for food.
He's going to have to sharpen it because her skin is very, very, very thick. Because if you think about it, we use the skin here for, you know, gloves and things like this. So this is very strong.
As you can see, the woman that was on the trip, she knew a lot about pigs. She had grown up with pigs. She had seen them slaughtered. So for her to see a pig being cut up, which we did stay and watch, I didn't show you that part. To her, it was like bringing back memories. That wouldn't be the case for everybody, but it was for her because this was a specially designed trip. Again, who would have thought that we were going to come back from that jungle hike and that pig is like dead right there in the hot tropical sun. I want to end this on a great story. This happened just a few years ago. We were in a rural market in a mountain town in Mexico. Every Monday, this whole town just transforms into an outdoor market, and people from all the small villages in the mountain come down and they trade and they barter, and it's more than just produce and that. There's live animals. They're trading and buying horses and cows and pigs, and then other stuff like household things, shoes, and you name it, even used clothing. There were streets of used clothing. It's very, very interesting. I love to take people there to see how they shop. While we were there, and again, every time I've been there with small groups, we've never ever seen any other foreigners. It's just the local people. Well, on this particular time, we had a few folks on this trip, and a couple of them had gone with my guide, and we kind of split up, and then there was this one guy that stayed with me from the United States. And so as we were walking around, we got to the bakery items, in this one aisle, and this guy who was selling bread saw us and he motioned for us to come over. And he was so excited to see us, and he started thanking us for coming to his town to travel this distance to be there. And then all of a sudden, I guess he just got this idea. He reaches down and grabs one of these round loaves of fresh bread that they had just made and hands it to my client and said, "Here, this is a gift. Thank you for coming." He didn't want any money for it. It was really just a gift, which is incredible. I mean, where do you go these days, especially if you're going to tourist areas? I mean, those local people see tourists and foreigners all the time, and they're not going to give anything away. In fact, they're trying to sell you stuff left and right and left and right. And here we are, the only foreigners in the place, in this entire town, and this guy gives a gift. And that's what you find when you go to the off-beaten path places as compared to the tourist places. Hey, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope this inspired you to maybe try traveling in a different light, like maybe go as a traveler instead of a tourist. I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. A new video comes out every single week. And until then, as they say in Spanish, hasta luego. We'll see you soon. Hey, take a look at this. That's Mo, Larry, and Curly right there. Uh-oh, Mo's kind of falling over. I have no idea what they have to do with Christmas, but every year my neighbor puts those up.